everyone. Welcome back to another fun-filled lesson of Actual English. I'm Jennifer Clyde. It's time for lesson 355, and today's topic is Superpowers 2. We had a chance to listen to what Gareth and Kelly had to say in the past, and today we have Mary and Martin sharing their ideas or their thoughts on their favorite superpowers. So we'll have the second opportunity to listen to another actual talk conversation. If you're ready, let's get started.
I was watching some movies with my school children this week, and we were watching Harry Potter.
Okay.
And at one point in the movie, Harry puts this cloak on his back.
The invisibility cloak.
The invisibility cloak, yeah.
Yes.
And after the end of the movies, I asked all of my children what superpower would they have if they had any that they could choose from. Which one would you go for?
I don't know. Time travel's always been interesting. Invisibility is good.
Yeah.
Time travel, the problem with that is I don't know if I'd ever be satisfied. Like I don't know, maybe there's different rules. Maybe you can change things if you go back in time. Maybe you can't change the way things...
You can just observe, but not change, yeah.
I don't know, so maybe I'd leave that, probably teleporting.
Ooh, okay, so being able to move from one area to another instantaneously.
Right. Having this international life,
yeah.
Obviously, I spend a lot of time on planes, and then rush hour is not my favorite. Public transport isn't always so much fun, so I think that's the one I would choose. How about you?
Well, I was going to go with invisibility.
Okay.
I think the idea of being able to hide in plain sight is something that I find really interesting. You can just observe what's going on and no one really knows you're there.
Right.
But actually, the idea of teleportation is fantastic. There are so many superpowers out there, though.
Right.
You see in the cartoon characters of Batman and Spider-Man and Superman. I think it's just such an endless option.
Right. I still think teleportation is the best.
You're entitled to that opinion. I'm going to go with you on that one, actually.
I guess people's favorite superpowers could be similar. They did mention something such as teleporting, which means to move from one place to another, means to transport from one place to another in an instant very quickly. So they did talk about that as well. Being invisible was something that I mentioned. Now they mentioned something about an invisibility cloak as well. So let's check out what these words actually mean. Here we go. So today's conversation was between Mary and Martin once again, and Martin began by saying, I was watching some movies with my school children this week. So as we know, he is a teacher. He teaches little children, so he was watching movies with some of his students. We were watching Harry Potter. Okay, and at one point in the movie, Harry puts this cloak on. So you could put a coat on. You could put a hat on, which means to wear something, right? But here he says, in the movie Harry Potter, Harry puts a cloak on. Cloak. Okay, that word is not misspelled. It's C-L-O-A-K. That's correct. What is a cloak, everyone? I guess if you've watched Harry Potter, you know what a cloak is. Basically, a cloak is something that we wear over our clothes, okay? On the very outside. So it would be the last layer of clothing, but usually cloaks are loose, they're very big, they're usually long, and they're sleeveless in many cases. A shawl is a type of cloak as well, something you would wear over your coat or over everything else. So something you would just throw on is a cloak. Anyhow, Mary says the invisibility cloak. Martin says the invisibility cloak, yeah. And after the end of the movie, I asked all of my children. So he asked all of his children what superpower they would have, or choose, I guess, if they had any that they could choose from. So if they could choose from all those superpowers, what or which superpower would you like to have? Is the question he asked his children. Now, which one would you go for? He asks. This question is for Mary. So he talks about his students in his class, how he asked his students which superpower they would like to have. But now he finally says, okay, Mary, what about you? Which would you go for? Let's take a look at go for. To go for something means to choose, select, okay? Imagine there is something like a prize, okay? A prize is right here. Now, if you want to choose, select, or get that prize, you have to go towards the prize, right? So you would go for it. Okay, remember this action if you can't remember the meaning of go for. So go for means to select something or choose, okay? So which would you choose, in other words? Mary says time travel has always been interesting. So she mentions time travel, okay? And then she says invisibility is good. All right. Since we talked about the invisibility cloak, a cloak we put on that would make us instantly invisible. So what is invisibility? Okay. Invisibleness is a synonym. It's basically the quality of not being seen by the human eye. So invisible, you can be transparent. Okay. Now, if people cannot see you, you could become, or if you're invisible, people cannot see you. So we're talking about the quality of not being able to be seen by others. Time travel. The problem with that is I don't know if I would ever be satisfied. So with time travel, she's not sure if she'll be 100% happy with that, satisfied. She says, maybe you can change things if you go back in time. Maybe you can't. So she's unsure about that. But let's take a look at go back in time. All right, go back in time, go back in time. It's simple. Just as we can tell, to go back in time means to travel back in time. Go back into the past. Go back to a time in history. Okay, so turn back time, kind of go back to the past means to go back in time. Now, Martin says you can just observe but not change. Okay, observe means to watch something. You can observe something, meaning to study something, to watch something very closely. So you can study something or just see, watch something, which means to observe. So he's saying, well, maybe you can just look and see and observe, but I don't think you'd be able to change anything. Now, Mary says, I don't know, so maybe I'd leave that. Leave that meaning, leave that out. Maybe I won't choose time travel. Probably teleporting, she says. Okay, we went over teleporting, okay? Teleport. Teleporting means what? To teleport means to transport, to move from one location to another in an instant. Okay, very quickly, just like that. So that's teleporting. Now, Martin says, ooh, so being able to move from one area to another instantaneously. This is a difficult word, but the meaning is quite simple. Instantaneously means instantly. Okay, just like that, in 1 second, in less than a second, very quickly. Instantaneously. We'll go over that word later on. So he says, teleporting. You want to be able to have that superpower. So you can move from one area, one place to another, instantly, instantaneously. Having this international life, obviously, I spent a lot of time on planes. That's right. Since she's saying she has an international life, it means she's living away from home in a foreign country. It can also mean that she's traveling a lot, but because of that, she spends a lot of time on planes. Rush hour is not my favorite. Public transport isn't always so much fun. So, I think that the one I would choose, I think that's the one I would choose. That's what? That is teleporting. And then she asks Martin, okay, I told you which superpower I would choose. Now tell me about your favorite one. How about you? Martin says, well, I think the idea of being able to hide in plain sight is something that I find really interesting. Now, hide in plain sight could be used in different situations. Here, he's just saying that he thinks it's cool. He likes the idea of being invisible, not being seen by people. He thinks it's a cool idea. Okay, hide in plain sight. But hide in plain sight actually means, okay, to have something hidden. So you hide something, but it's not hidden so well that it's actually easily found. It's easily seen, okay? So we'll go over hide in plain sight later on in more detail, but what he is trying to say is being invisible is a very, very nice idea. I like the idea of being able to hide in plain sight, of being able to be invisible, okay? You can observe what's going on. You can watch. You can look. You can see what's going on, and nobody really knows you're there, which is kind of scary. He says, but the idea of teleportation is fantastic. So he likes the idea of being able to teleport. The idea of teleportation is fantastic. There are so many superpowers out there, meaning to choose from, though, that you see in the cartoon characters of Batman. So he's talking about the many, many, many superpowers that we see in cartoon characters, okay, of Batman, Spider-Man, even Superman. And he thinks that it's such an endless option. I think it's such an endless option. If you say that something is endless, it means that there is no end to it, which means there are many, 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 many of it, okay? So he's talking about the many options you can choose from, the endless options you can choose from. So the list goes on and on and on. List of superpowers he's referring to. Right, Mary says, I still think teleportation is the best. Okay, the best. So for Mary, she thinks that teleportation is the greatest, is the best. And of course, Martin says, well, you're entitled to that opinion. Entitled. If you say that somebody is entitled to something, you're saying that that person has the right to do that, okay? To have the right to do something. So he's saying, well, you're entitled to that option. You have the right to choose from all those options. You have the right, okay? You have the right, you're entitled to that option. I'm going to go with you on that one, actually. So go with you on that. Go with you on that means I will join you on that one. Basically meaning that he agrees with her. He is going to choose teleportation as his favorite superpower. Okay? So actually, I think that brings us to an end to the conversation. So far, we have, listened to the conversation between these two, and they've come to a decision. They have chosen teleportation as their favorite or their best superpower. Which would you choose, everyone? Would you choose to be invisible, or would you choose to be able to teleport? I would choose teleportation. Okay, let's take a listen one more time.
I was watching some movies with my school children this week, and we were watching Harry Potter.
Okay.
And at one point in the movie, Harry puts this cloak on his back.
The invisibility cloak.
The invisibility cloak, yeah.
Yes.
And after the end of the movies, I asked all of my children what superpower would they have if they had any that they could choose
right.
from. Which one would you go for?
I don't know. Time travel's always been interesting. Invisibility's good.
Yeah.
Time travel, the problem with that is I don't know if I'd ever be satisfied. Like I don't know, maybe there's different rules. Maybe you can change things if you go back in time. Maybe you can't change the way things...
You can just observe, but not change. Yeah.
I don't know. So maybe I'd leave that. Probably teleporting.
Ooh, okay, so being able to move from one area to another instantaneously.
Right. Having this international life, obviously, I spend a lot of time on planes, and then rush hour is not my favorite. Public transport isn't always so much fun, so I think that's the one I would choose. How about you?
Well, I was going to go with invisibility.
Okay.
I think the idea of being able to hide in plain sight is something that I find really interesting. You can just observe what's going on and no one really knows you're there. Right. But actually, the idea of teleportation is fantastic. There are so many superpowers out there, though.
Right.
You see in the cartoon characters of Batman and Spider-Man and Superman. I think it's just such an endless option.
Right. I still think teleportation is the best.
You're entitled to that opinion. I'm going to go with you on that one, actually.
Welcome back, everyone. Since we had that second opportunity to listen to actual talk, I hope that you have a better understanding of what they were talking about. Okay, now let's move on to actual expressions, our very next segment. With this segment, we get the chance to go over some vocab words taken from our actual talk conversation. So let's take a look at cloak. Cloak. Okay, it's basically a cover or a coat. As I mentioned, a shawl can be referred to as a cloak as well. It's a piece of clothing that we usually would wear over everything else, okay? On top of everything else. It's usually loose, okay? Something very big and loose, often sleeveless. All right, let's move on to invisibility. This word is a bit tricky to pronounce, so invisibility. 2 more times. Invisibility. 1 more time. Invisibility. Stress goes right there. A synonym is invisibleness. Now, these 2 words look very similar, don't they? I do want to point out that invisibility isn't used as commonly. So if you had the chance to talk about being invisible, or if you want to talk about invisibleness, if you were to choose between these 2 words, I would say choose to use invisibleness, okay? All right? It's used much more commonly, that's why. Invisibleness, invisibleness. Invisibility is not as commonly used in the noun form, okay? Now let's move on to observe. Here we go. Observe. The reason I have chosen this word is because although it means to detect, examine, monitor, to see, look at very closely, it's an O-B-S-E-R-V-E, but it's a Z sound. So be very cautious. Don't say observe, it's observe. Got it? Okay, moving on. Teleport, here we go. Teleport. Teleport means to move from one location to another in an instant, very quickly, right? So transmit, send, travel. Quickly could be a synonym. Instantaneously. Here we go. This is one long word. Let's practice how to pronounce it. 3 times. Instantaneously. Instantaneously. One last time. Instantaneously. We're talking about something done in an instant, at once, immediately, very, very quickly, instantaneously, occurring or done or completed in an instant, very quickly. Okay? What about entitle? In today's actual talk, I believe it was Martin telling Mary, you're entitled to that option, which means you have the right. Okay? So if you say that somebody is entitled to do something, you're saying that that person has the right to do something or to have something. All right, authorize, allow is a good synonym, even enable. Okay, now that we've gone over all the vocab words, let's move on to our first pattern for today. To go for, remember, I told you To go for something means to go somewhere to grab something, means to select, choose, go for something. You could go for a person as well. Let's say, for example, you're interested in somebody. Okay, you have a crush on someone. You like this girl. And you tell your friend, oh, I like Amy, but I'm too shy. I don't know how to tell her. Maybe I'll just give up. Your friend says, hey, don't give up. Go for her. Go for her or go for it. Means, hey, give it a shot. Don't give up. Give it a shot. Go and grab her. Okay, so here we go. What type of food do you usually go for? One more time. What type of food do you usually go for? In this case, we're saying what? What type of food do you usually go for? Go to eat, select, choose, accept. Okay, so this can be used like this. All right, moving on to go or step back in time. Go back in time, step back in time, which means you're going backwards, going back into the past. Okay, here we go. My grandmother often says that she would do anything to step back in time. This means my grandmother often says that she would do anything. She's dying to turn back time. There is a slight difference. Turn back time kind of means to bring the past into the present, but to step back in time or to go back in time means to travel into the past, to go back to the past. All right, our final pattern, hide or to be hidden in plain sight. Usually, if you see that something is hidden in plain sight, you're saying that it is hidden. Okay, it is hidden, somehow hidden, but it's not really hidden because it's easily found. Okay, so if you don't hide something very well, you can say that that thing is hidden in plain sight. For example, knowing Matt, he probably has my present hidden in plain sight. Meaning, knowing Matt, he's very bad at hiding things. He probably has my present hidden in plain sight. Hidden somewhere that's very easy to find. That's what we're trying to say. Let's try the sentence one more time. Knowing Matt, he probably has my present hidden in plain sight. Okay, job well done, everyone. Please do go over the vocab words and the patterns more on your own.
If I could have any superpower, what would it be? And I had to think about this one a lot because, like I said before, I'm a huge nerd. So I've actually thought about each individual power and its strengths and weaknesses. So, you could have super strength, or you could fly, or you could teleport. All of those would be very interesting and wonderful. But after thinking a very long time, I thought the best thing would probably be time travel. The reason why is because if you make a mistake, you can simply go back and erase it and do things the way you want to do. And you can keep doing things again and again and again until you're successful at whatever it is you're trying to achieve. So if I had the choice, I would be Eugene the Time Avenger.
Okay, that was Eugene H. from America with actual story. Yes, very much like him. He talked about how he would love to be able to, travel back in time. Why? Because he would be able to erase his mistakes. Pretty cool idea. Okay, here we go. He says, I had to think about this a lot because I'm a huge nerd. Okay, now a nerd. I don't know why exactly he said he was a huge nerd, but nerd. Usually when you say that somebody is a nerd, that you were a nerd, that you are a nerd, you're referring to that person or yourself as somebody that's very boring, that doesn't have many friends, that just studies all the time, okay? But anyhow, he just says he had to think about this one, meaning this question, for a long time. He had to think hard. So I've actually thought about each individual power, meaning he thought about each and every different, individual, separate superpower, and he thought about its strengths and weaknesses, the good points and the bad points. The reason why is because if you make a mistake, you can simply go back and erase it and do things the way you want to do, okay? Now he's talking about teleportation, okay? He would like to travel back in time or travel time. So he's saying, I would like to go back into the past, and if I make a mistake, I could erase it, okay? And do things differently. And finally, here we go. You can keep doing things again and again and again. When? Until you are successful at whatever it is you're trying to achieve. So until you are successful at what you want to achieve. So I think he's made a pretty good point. If you had a superpower where you could go back in time and erase all those mistakes and correct things, it would be really cool, right? Okay, thanks to Eugene once again. Let's take a listen one more time.
If I could have any superpower, what would it be? And I had to think about this one a lot because, like I said before, I'm a huge nerd. So I've actually thought about each individual power and its strengths and weaknesses. So, you could have super strength, or you could fly, or you could teleport. All of those would be very interesting and wonderful. But after thinking a very long time, I thought the best thing would probably be time travel. The reason why is because if you make a mistake, you can simply go back and erase it and do things the way you want to do. And you can keep doing things again and again and again until you're successful at whatever it is you're trying to achieve. So if I had the choice, I would be Eugene the Time Avenger.
Having listened to what Eugene had to say today, I think I changed my mind. I did have thoughts of wanting to be invisible. I did have thoughts of, wanting to be able to teleport. But now, I guess teleportation and time travel are similar. I think it's great, or it would be great to be able to not just travel back in time, but to be able to just travel time, okay? So time traveling or teleportation would be a wonderful superpower. Not only can you take yourself back into the past, but you can take yourself into the future to see how things will be. This is something I just instantly, or just thought of right now, but of course you can go back into the past and correct those mistakes that you've made. Sometimes when you're not so sure about whether you should do something or not, when it comes to making decisions, you could always travel into the future to see how things go and then make your decision. So, yes, teleportation, time travel would be the best superpower for me. Anyhow, hope that you learned a lot, everyone. Please do go over the vocab words and the patterns we learned today so that you can make use of them the next time we talk about a similar topic. Next time, I'll join you back with some topics related to pets and animals. Our next topic is pets and animals. One, we'll focus on just pets in general. So join us for that. In the meantime, come to our homepage, everyone. Come on over to www.ebse.co.kr. Look for Actual English and post up your thoughts if you have any that you want to share on our message board. That's a wrap. I'll have to say goodbye. Until I see you again next time. Bye for now, everyone.